these roots down from the bottoms of your feet. Allow to connect, to really connect with the earth. This is very important. Be intentional. Be motivated. Okay, and if your eyes are closed, you can open them up now. And I would like you, again, to look around at one another, just casually. Good. I see Amber and Quinn like looking actually at each other. If you're with somebody, wherever you are, you can do that. And just seek to connect. Yes, just seek to connect. So what have we done? Yes, Mark. In these last couple moments, we have taken breaths together. We are breathing in and breathing out, something that we do all the time that we can oftentimes just, we forget, we take for granted. And then we felt our feet on the ground, offering these grounding cords to the earth, almost like a blessing to the earth, because the earth blesses us, these roots. And then we allowed ourselves to just check each other out. Check each other out, and all in an intentional way. See, when we do things intentionally, it's very different. Oftentimes, we're going so fast. But when we're intentional, see, that slows the pace. Now, I'm glad I did this because this is the last sermon of the month, and the month was all about the spirituality of agitation. The spirituality of agitation. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what this means. If I haven't explained it fully, I want to make sure I do tonight. Teachers, you know this, that oftentimes we are in a comfort zone. Imagine a bubble, a comfort zone bubble. Now, outside of that comfort zone bubble is the discomfort zone. And outside of a discomfort zone bubble is the alarm zone. Now, what happens when we are learning is we don't learn in this comfort zone. We learn in the discomfort zone. That's when we learn the most. That's when we can take on new ideas, new thoughts. That's when we can be expansive in vision. It's wonderful. This is when we can develop our compassion, and we can increase our understanding of one another. But to take you into this spirituality of agitation, into this feeling of discomfort, it would be negligent on my end to not remind all of us, to first breathe. And second, ground down into the earth. And then thirdly, to connect with each other. See, this is really challenging right now. It is very hard to form community, isn't it, during this time? It is very hard to connect with each other. You know, let's just I just have to go off page. I have to. The Spirit is leading me to. Look at this. This is bizarre. We are in little boxes looking at each other. This is bizarre, isn't it? And I'm not being negative, okay? I don't mean it like that. I'm grateful we have this. I'm grateful that we are able to come together on Sunday night and do this. But when we think about it, just taking a pause, I miss being with you all. I miss being in the live space. I miss being able to connect in a more rich, deeper, intimate, spiritually intimate is how I mean, way. Some of you I've never met in the live space, and prayerfully one day I will. But I just have to say, we are up against it. We have some challenges before us. Let's be real. Our attention spans, right now you might be thinking of what you're going to eat after this. You might be thinking of what you're going to do. You might be thinking, why am I on this Zoom service? That's cool. I don't take anything personally anymore. I've been doing this long enough. And then you might be really present. I see you, Judy. I want us to push tonight more than we have. That's why I'm sitting closer. I want us to push tonight more than we ever have. I want us to push ourselves and abolish any walls that are around our hearts. Who's tired of the wall that might be around your heart? Who's tired of it? Because here's the thing, all of us have times in our life where we get into that fear zone, and then we disconnect from our hearts a little bit. All of us do. It's normal. We're humans. We're little earthlings. The theme tonight in the spirituality of agitation is a takeoff of last week's celebration and discord. And where I want to go with this, in keeping with what I just spoke, I'm keeping with that, is how we can still feel these disconnects, maybe even at this service, or feel anxiety, feel anger, feel fear, experience emotions and feelings, and still be connected together, and still have hope, as Chris said, and still remember that in our high hearts, we know what's true. In our high hearts, no hurt, harm, or danger can come near there. In Latin, discord literally means apart from the heart. Dis is apart, and cord, the root, is heart. When we live in that place that is apart from the heart, as I said a moment ago, it's where fear can come in. And notice how right when I said that, my head just went down a little bit. Fear can come in, and isolation can come in. And while those things are challenging, meaning fear and other emotions and feelings, I do want to push back on the idea that that anger and that fear and that doubt and that worry and that despair are all just horrible things. I think what is revolutionary, what creates a revolution of love, feel this now, is being able to experience anger and fear and worry and doubt and despair and still be in our hearts. And still be in our hearts. This is going to take a lot of mastery, because see, what happens typically is people become unwieldy. And what it comes down to is that our emotional containers, our ability to have feelings, is very limited. So the solution is to be resilient. We need to build our emotional container so that we are more resilient. The typical, the thing that you hear in spiritual circles, and I've even heard this in self-help circles, is that things like anger and worry and doubt and fear and despair, they're all negative. And it's a grave concern. That's a grave concern. You know why? Because I believe what that tells us is that we can't have those emotions or feelings. And then, you know, then we oppress it, we suppress it, we push it down. That's when the problem happens. I have this teacher that I worked with for many years. Her name's Jane. She's Cherokee. And she said, see, you know, white folks, you don't understand. You hold with your bodies. You hold emotions in your bodies. You don't know how to just experience it. I think this is true for a lot of people, maybe not just white folks. So how do we hold all this? I said this last time when I talked about celebrating and I talked about honoring people. And I've said this a lot in various sermons on various topics, that wow, we are so complex as humans, aren't we? How do we have anger? How do we have fear? How do we have despair? I mean, half the time we're being told that that's not even okay, that that's not even spiritual. It's not even spiritual to have those kinds of feelings. So I guess the alternative is to walk around whistling Zoop-a-doo-dah, singing Kumbaya all the time. Yeah, that's not going to work. And I think what ends up happening, this is what I've seen, is that you suppress those natural feelings and emotions long enough, and it begins to come out the side of your neck. And what I mean by that is it begins to show up in your relationships, any kind of relationship, in a way that is really toxic. And ultimately, it's toxic for you. Ultimately, it leaves you alone. I'm going to get to the tools in a moment of some things that we can do to build our resilience so we can have emotions and feelings like anger and fear and worry and doubt and despair, and I'm just naming those, all at the same time as being connected into our beautiful hearts, all at the same time. But I want to pose something to you. And if you don't hear anything else, and I will say this, forgive me, I'm a bit tired today, but I will highlight this. If you don't hear anything else that I say tonight, please hear this. It is massively important for us to be able to build our emotional container. Why? The more we are able to feel our feelings and just experience them and allow them without dismissal, without denial, without shame, without shaming ourselves. How many of you might do that? It doesn't just benefit us. It benefits everybody that we meet. Every single person that we meet. So that's the first layer, and I want to tease this out just a bit more for you. Because what that offers us is when we meet someone that might be having, feel this, anger or worry or doubt or despair. They might be experiencing that because we are resilient and we are not afraid or shaming, self-shaming or blaming ourselves for having healthy emotions and feelings. We can be there for someone in a radically loving way, And we don't need to fix them. We don't need to fix them. We don't need to necessarily make anything better. We can just be powerfully present. That's love. That's some high heart love. Do you dig it? I hope you dig it. Okay, that was that first tier though. So, okay, yes, it helps us. Great. We're becoming more resilient. You know, we're experiencing more feelings and more emotions that are anger, that are doubt, that are worry, fear, despair. Okay, we're getting more resilient. And then we can be there and meet people, not where we're at, but where they are at. And really love them how they need to be loved, not how I think they should be loved. Remember a moment ago I said how complex this is? See, we're all so complex. You know, what might work for Rob might not work for Manny, might not work for Kimberly. See, when I am resilient, there's that word again, resilient, and I'm not apart from my heart. I'm not in discord, but I am in my heart. And I have that ability to feel my emotions and my feelings, to allow them. Then yes, I can tune in. I can tune into somebody and just show up in the way that they need. Okay, I said there was another tear coming, and I have to break it down just a wee bit more. It is my experience that when we begin this process, and like I said, it really comes in stages. Like it's more self first, and then we can expand it to other people and we see those benefits. There's something else that's very glorious that happens. And that is there is a shift in understanding. See, this is why this love stuff, this has always annoyed me. That people think like love is so like this whimsical, you know, what is the word? Just that this is such passive stuff and that it's not smart. Because this is where this wisdom comes in now. This understanding, this shift that I just told you about, that begins to happen. The more resilient we are, the more we begin to see people, the more we begin to tune in to people and where they are at and really seeing them, hearing them, loving them, like we say, this massive shift begins to happen in your consciousness. Feel it. It begins to happen. And there is an understanding that goes far beyond what you even knew about. And it can be very disorienting, hence the spirituality of agitation. Okay, so I'm falling into it in the last like 5-10 minutes or whatever. I started coming along online here. It took me a little while, whatever. This understanding, my friends, is so integral. It is going to take a massive amount of, now see, heart leading up to the mind. It's almost, think of it now, like the heart goes whoop, and you're just seeing in all new ways. And you're able to take on radical ideas about society, about culture, about this world. I want us to be so radical. I want us to be so radical that it's not radical. I want us to realize that radical ideas, like accepting everybody, like having a country where there is no policing, not police brutality, it's policing, where people aren't dying in the streets, Black folks aren't being shot and dead in the streets, where kids are no longer in cages and fighting for that, that ain't radical. There's nothing radical about justice, about a positive peace. There's nothing radical about it. Oh my gosh, we live in limited ways, don't we? So all I know to do is to come back to our resilience. Is to, for each of us, we must take this seriously. It says in our mission statement that Chris read, we have to take on board our inner work in a way that means something, and to really build our emotional container, which again, crystal clear right now, to be able to feel fear and anger and maybe rage, to not let it get the best of us though. See, I know it's hard. It's a slippery slope. But to feel these things, to have a holistic experience, to have a glorious experience of beauty and joy and renewal, and to also have a primal experience sometimes where it's very Hebrew Bible, where you are shaking your fist up at God, saying, what is this? What is happening in this country? What are the ways to go? What do we need to see? God? And the only thing that I can think of, my friends, my dear, dear family right now, is to come back into our hearts. And for some, it's going to be really hard to do that because you might be really afraid because of what that entails. So some tools now to close this time out is to breathe and ground. I know it's so basic. We cannot do it enough. I want you to breathe and ground all throughout your days. All throughout your days. Breathe and ground and breathe and ground and ground and breathe and breathe and ground and center, 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 center. And I know some of you, like Barry, is an avid exerciser, athlete. And so some of you, that might be very grounding for you. You have to figure out exactly the ways that are things that are going to really ground you, on top of breathing, on top of feeling your feet on the ground. You know, Rob is an incredible musician and composer. Maybe that is how he can ground himself. You have to figure out what your practices are going to be. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you everything. But do them and take them seriously, because this is the first way you're going to build resiliency. Why? So you can take on these hard emotions, these challenging emotions like anger and like fear and like worry and doubt and despair and all these things that I know so many of you are feeling lately. And so then that way you can begin to see and meet others and their experience that is particular to them and tune into them. And then that way you can begin to have a higher level of understanding and a vision of this life that we get to live, that we get to experience. And we don't know how long, do we? We don't know how long we'll be here. Ground, breathe, feel your feet on the ground. Michelle, I know, dances. Dance, whatever it is. And then a second thing now. So ground is the first thing. And then the second thing, identify. I want you to identify. And what I mean by that is get in touch with yourself. We began this time tonight. I said, what are you feeling? How does your body feel? Begin to really pay attention. Begin to really pay attention. Because it's not going to necessarily just be in here. This is a power center, your solar plexus. Sometimes when we are getting hit with something, a bad feeling, like maybe a conflict with somebody, this you'll feel it. You'll feel it. This is not like hocus pocus. This is real. Your body, our bodies are magnificent. It gives us clues and cues. Identify. Number 2, identify how you're feeling. Just identify it. Oh, feeling anxious. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. I am anxious, but I'm noticing anxiety, or I am feeling anxious, or I'm feeling anger. Just identify. The third thing is just to allow. Allow, and allow, and allow some more. and then allow again. Just allow. I was not a mom, sadly, except I have congregants and I sort of feel like a mom because I get to love you all unconditionally. But parents, moms and dads, when your little one was just that, was little, and it was and your baby was crying, did you go, no, stop it, stop it? I hope not. What do? For a baby, you, take it alongside you and allow, and maybe love it and nurture. See, we are like that punitive parent to ourselves. We are. We have this negative voice, this punitive voice. I hear it. I've worked with people for 20 years. And this negative voice of, come on. You got to get over it. You got to get through this. No, you don't. Nothing bad is going to happen if you take a pause to allow. See, we get scared because that's going to mean feeling it. But if we are committed to this inner work and building our resiliency, as well as tuning into other people, the way that they need to be tuned into and loved, as well as that third thing I mentioned, the understanding and the shift in perception, then that means we need to do this. It means we have to do this, actually. I hope you see how my brain works. I know it's very micro to macro, it's like it contracts and expands, because I see how all of this is connected. Our inner work is, in fact, totally connected to our outer work in the world. Our resiliency impacts if we can even show up in the world, or how I am going to be able to show up, like when Chris and I went to Black Lives Matter on Wednesday. See, I had an experience. I had yet another shift in consciousness, another awareness. But that's because I have this resiliency, because I've been practicing for many, 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 many years. So what are you going to do? Number one, you're going to ground. And number two, you're going to identify. Just identify. And number three, you are going to allow. And in that allowance, my friends, again, you might find that you're going back to step one, with this, just the grounding and the breathing. You might say, you know what? I got to call a friend right now. Hey, I need to talk to you. I need some help. I'm in that allowance. You might discern that you need to just go into prayer. You need to phone home. You need to phone home. You need to go to God in prayer. Because sometimes, you know what, at 3 a.m, there may be nobody there for you. That's just where your higher power, your highest self, that love, whatever you call it, that will be there. That will be there. In the spirit of allowance is where our hearts, our minds, our bodies actually have radical healing. You would never do the things that you do to yourself to your child. The things, the self-shaming, the self-talk that is so negative, that blaming. I know most of you would never do that to your child. Be unconditionally loving to yourself. If you showed up here tonight, which you did, we all did, we are that brave. We are that brave. And we each have a call here. And I believe the call is the same. It's going to look different from person to person. This is the last thing I'm going to say. But it is service. We are here on this planet to serve. That's it. Well, and we're here to heal too. Heal and serve. And serving looks like loving. And loving looks like living. But how you are going to do it is going to be different for you. And that's the beauty, is that we all have a wing on this thing. We all have a slice of the pie. I want us to all think about some of these things I said tonight, whatever piece that you might have gotten. Maybe it's just one sentence, and I want us to really chew on it. Those of you that know the practice of Lectio Divina is where you take a piece of scripture and you just chew on, maybe be still and know that God is in the midst of you. Maybe it's just be still. And in that practice, you chew on it and you chew on it and you chew on it some more. And then you chew on it again. And tonight, in this time, this holy time for the Jewish people of Yom Kippur, I want us to go into the spirit of true reflection. Because the time is surely now, my friends. It's been time. So let us all take our work seriously and let us take it on joyfully. Hey, we're here. We're alive. There's a lot of people that aren't. We are here. So let us get busy living. I'm not even going to say get busy dying. I'm going to say get busy healing and get busy loving. God bless you. God bless you. And much love to you. I love you from the highest place. Let us go within.